This is looking at that next wave of development, where next and what next for the city. The perfect location chosen by JMW solicitors. Which one aspect do you think has been successful in Manchester's regeneration boom so far?
For me, it would be Spinningfields, a redundant area before with MediaCom in 2013, then XYZ number one. It's really put Manchester on the map.
In terms of the next 10 years, what I'd like to see the city do is kind of focus a little bit more on the residents. There seems to be this kind of obsession in the city about kind of attracting kind of workers in and people on a night out. A lot of kind of good European cities really focus on the people living there.
For me, the City Council, being proactive, particularly in the residential sector, and really driving that pro-development agenda. And then if there's one aspect that will trickle out for me into the GM towns, it will be having proactive local authorities. The risk with that is that you'll have certain local authorities who are very good and proactive, and then you might get some other local authorities that really do get left behind.
My sort of placemaking kind of focus is now looking at these developments that are kind of 5 years, 10 years down the line, and almost looking at how we keep that vision and proposition going throughout their kind of life cycle of investment.
Manchester has been a success very much off the back of an appeal on a global market. The one worry about that is it's very much focused on inward investment and big floor plates. The indigenous community in Manchester is very much sub 50 employees and sub 5,000 square feet floor plates. So we kind of can't forget about those small SMEs.
A huge part of the city's growth stems from the university sector. I think we have a great ability to attract and retain talent, which I think in turn helps the economic growth. You see in sort of large companies coming to Manchester because we're retaining international talent.
Having that philosophy as partnership and cooperation, which is part of Greater Manchester's identity anyway, and I think that continues to be at the forefront of the devolution agenda as well. So, Manchester is seen as trailblazing that approach in, say, other city region areas, and I think that gives, therefore, the private sector a lot of investment confidence.
Just now, Manchester is a place where people come to as a destination for education, investment and tourism as well to a certain extent, so I think that's changed. My big concern over the next 10 years is can we keep that happening, because everybody reverts back to London when there's a bit of a crisis.
There's been such a focus on residential development over the last 10 years. A lot of the big regeneration schemes that we're seeing coming forward now have office at the heart of them. Central or retail park, back of Vancoats have got a much more office led flavour.
Obviously the problem we've got is the ring road and the barrier there, and I think there needs to be some kind of key strategic kind of high level decisions about how we actually link the places up that are beyond the ring road.
Not everybody wants to live in the city centre, but that they might work in the city centre, they need access to the city centre, and then you say, well, it's a bit further out, it's too far away. It's actually a 14-minute train journey into Victoria, and if you put that, say, on a London map, 14 minutes from the centre doesn't get you very far, does it? And that's where I think the whole thing is starting to change, as I was saying, that tipping point. I think that is genuinely where the satellite towns of GM need to play a bigger role.
So every scheme that does get delivered gets absorbed so quickly that really the evidence suggests that there's not enough product.
I was just going to say, I think if we want to be an ambition to be a truly international city, we want to attract people, young professionals who live here, but we also want them to have the infrastructure in place and everything that goes with it to keep families here.
The kind of mixed use offer as well, isn't it? And I think we're seeing that massively in London and across the UK, where obviously it's the live, work, play kind of story that's been talked about a lot in the past, but actually it's the same people that go to work and then go home at night to an apartment.
Every district has to find its own personality and its own unique selling points. There is definite lack of stock of offices, and the development pipeline will be a lag in the next 12 to 18 months.
What we've been trying to do is taking town centres like Rochdale that were just kind of retail focused 9 to 5 into a 24/7 economy. So taking that on another level, then using the heritage assets you've got in those kind of town centres.
That nod to heritage was interesting. We've done it well in the city centre, and we can continue to do it in the Greater Manchester towns, taking those mills in Stockport and those different things and working on that. That adds that character and that uniqueness and difference.
Heritage assets that are left tend to be the most challenging ones, but actually they're the ones where, as the values increase, you'll get more creative results from reusing those assets. Marrying that with the zero carbon agenda, obviously there's a lot of embodied carbon in those existing assets, and if that's taken into account in how we achieve zero carbon and that accountability, actually there's a real opportunity.
What you're seeing cities is now infill in between the hot spots, between the areas of greatness. So Deansgate's a great example, between Spinningfields and Great Jackson Street. I think we'll see lots of spots in the city that we've all sort of ignored and forgotten about start to pop up and be regenerated.